What's going on, guys? Welcome to Hammock Brothers Garage. I'm Rico. This is my brother Byron. Today we're going to do lower ball joints on my wife's Expedition here. Alright, so as you can see, already jacked it up and pulled the wheel off. I figured if you're looking into doing ball joints on your own, you already know how to take your wheels off. So next we need to take off the brake caliper, the brake rotor, the front strut, and I believe the tie rod, and we need to pull this little cap off and pull the CV shaft out. So I'm gonna get going on that. Alright, you never want to leave your brake calipers just hanging off the brake lines. It's kind of just asking for something to break. So I usually just grab a bungee cord and hook it on whatever I can find in here. Or if you can't get them off, in this, just like this situation, you can find a bolt that fits through there. I found one.
Just kind of use it like a puller. I like to do it kind of evenly on either side.
Come right off. Pull this little cap off. And there's a little nut here that holds the CV shaft in. Alrighty. So next, I guess we'll pull the strut off. On these Fords, it's a giant bolt. I don't know why. I'm gonna use the impact, bust this nut off. Let that heat up. We'll take the sway bar link off, just so you can get this side of the suspension to drop down all the way and get your shock and your axle and all that stuff out. I think we got enough heat on there. Pull that nut off. Take off the tripod here. You can see what I got going. So this is your sway bar link here, and your sway bar. This connects the suspension on this side to the other side, so it prevents body roll and stuff. So you can see it's got a nut that holds it on here. Then this is a hex shape, kind of like a bolt. So you can put a little wrench on there, so when you're turning this nut, the whole thing doesn't spin, because there's a little ball joint in here. This is where having a flex head ratchet comes in handy. If not, you can just use a ratchet wrench. Sometimes, depending on what you're working on, you have to get to these from under the hood. These Expeditions and the F-150s, they're the same front suspension, but you don't need to get under the hood for them. This might be easier sometimes depending on what you got, like, if your bushings are in good shape or whatever, like these ones are, sometimes it's easier to loosen up the bottom A-arms a little bit to push the suspension down far enough to get the shock out. If you need new ends, you can just use a ball joint separator or a pickle fork like this, pound it in there and it'll pop it up. So you can also, like someone's already done here, you can hit right here, it'll, because these are kind of, they're tapered fit, so they kind of press in. So if you hit here, it'll vibrate enough to pull them out. There you go. Alright, I don't understand why they do it like this. It makes it so you can't work on anything. Alright, that should give us enough room. Okay, so I ended up having to pull the top ball joint. Didn't really want to do that, but it's not that big a deal. Then I pulled the CV shaft out. Oh, and I got the strut out. Pulling that top ball joint is what gave me enough room. So now, here's your lower ball joint. We'll pull this nut off on the bottom here. Then we'll shove that pickle fork in between there, like that. Pound it out of there and this spindle will fall off. Then we'll be able to get the spindle out of the way and get the ball joint press in there and press that ball joint out. Press the new one in and put her all back together. Impact makes things a lot easier. Sure, I got it out, might as well use it, huh? Okay, so this goes in here, like that. Big crap of it. Take that dust shield off, it gives you a lot better access to the ball joint right here. Forgot that step. Bend my. All right. Now we use this ball joint press. I don't own one of these. This is the rental from O'Reilly Auto Parts. You can go in there and just ask them to rent a ball joint press. But here's the part number on it: 67045. How this works, helps if you have the new ball joint, kind of helps you. So you find your sleeve that fits on your ball joint, on the metal part around it, without damaging the rubber, just like that. And this goes over this way, so it has these steps for the different size sleeves. Slips over it like that. And it sits in the I guess you don't need the ball joint in there yet. But it sits in the press. It's got a little lip, kind of recesses in there. Then you just run the threaded part down. This will hit the ball joint and push it out. Should see if we got the right size socket out first before we get too crazy. Up. Backwards. You need the bigger sleeve to get it out. So the bigger one, the bigger sleeve will fit all the way around it, so you can push it out of the A-arm here. 1/2 inch will work, 1/2 inch drive, or sitting here with a lot of patience and a big ratchet or breaker bar. You should never be able to move a ball joint like this. It should be way too stiff. Yeah, move it. Can't move that at all. It's just so tight in there. That's how it should be. Yeah, that's everybody. Alright, so going back in, we use whatever ring or spacer, I guess, you found that fits the ball joint. And then on the top, you need one that will fit into the ball joint will fit in this other way, like this, because you're going to push it past flat here. So you use this other spacer deal, whichever one fits whatever way. So that one can work on the bottom, and this one can work on top, I think. And you just press it in. If I remember right, none of this really worked on these Fords. So let's use the big one. So it doesn't really fit, but it fits good enough to get it done. Not ideal, but what in life ever is ideal, right? See if I can remember how I did this. I might have had to use that in a plate. That's what it was. Okay, so this will go on here. One goes there. And if you drive a Ford, for some reason, this universal ball joint press doesn't really work. I'll show this on camera before I start going so you can see what I got going on here. So this C-clamp, or whatever you want to call this, is not tall enough for the Ford setup you need for the Fords, with the pretty much everything, with how far you have to press the ball joint in. So you can see I got the ball joint in there, and the sleeve adapter thing, and the puck, and then I had to get this other sleeve adapter, but I have to use this plate. It's like 1/4 inch plate that I just have laying around. And as you can see, it just barely fits in there. And that'll give me enough room to, with this adapter here, to squeeze that ball joint up in there. So I'm going to pull this loose and make sure that this sleeve adapter deal is fitting around the ball joint, so I'm not messing up the brand new ball joint. What I did there is I just kind of scratched a line with my pocket knife around this so I can see where it needs to sit so that it clears the ball joint. Because the ball joints they press in there and then they have a groove. You can put a C-clip in. I don't want to mess that groove up. There we go, ball joint's in. You can feel it kind of, when you're impacting it down, it'll sound kind of hollow almost, and then it'll sound solid. And that's when you know it's in there. Alright, the only pair of snap ring pliers I ever bought got stolen. I never bought more. They also come with a Zerk fitting, which is nice. The stock ones aren't serviceable, which has never made any sense to me. And we'll put the strut back in. Then the spindle and everything, we'll just start putting her back together. I didn't, but you can feel around in there and feel the holes and see which way. So this big old bolt that goes to the shock, it's a nylock. I burned the nylon out of it, heating it up to get it out. So I'm going to put some Loctite on it. Okay, so don't do what I just did. And make sure your sway bar link goes into the sway bar before you put the shock bolt back on, because you can't move the sway bar unless you unhook the other side. Alright, now we'll get the spindle back on. It's easiest to try to get the axle kind of lined up and put it on. And get your little nut, stick it in there, hand thread it on there. That'll kind of help you keep everything on, at least halfway. Make sure your vacuum lines, you don't forget to put your vacuum lines back on for your four-wheel drive if they pop off. Don't forget your little nut for your CV shaft. I don't know what'll happen. If you do forget it, I don't know if it'll pop out or not. I'm not going to try it. Okay. So as you can see, we got the top ball joint back in. The bottom one's in and tight. We got the tie rod in. The The CV shaft's back in, the shock's in. Now we're ready to put the brake rotor and or brake dust shield, then the rotor, then the brake caliper back on. And no, I didn't torque any of these things because you just get it tight and it's good. You can look up torque specs if you want. I'm just showing you the process and the way I do it. I've never torqued these in my life. Never had a problem with it, except for when I was in school. So, all right, I'll put you back on the tripod. I'll get the dust shield and the brakes back on, and then we'll put this wheel back on. Move on to the other side. All right, for the sake of not doing this again, or having this problem with the rotor seasoning onto the hub, I'm gonna clean her up a little bit. Nothing crazy, just some WD-40 and some Scotch-Brite. Brake clean the green can over there. Thank you. This is obviously a pretty good time to check the life on your brake pads. These ones are still in pretty good shape. This little clip here. This side's done. Get my bungee cords off. If anybody doesn't believe me that I can get them as tight as they're supposed to be, you can come check them with a torque wrench. I bet you they're within a few pounds. Alrighty, well that's it. That's how you change lower ball joints on a 08 Expedition. The F-150s and similar years are all the same. I had 06 F-150 and it was the exact same process. If you need to do uppers, same thing, you just take the whole upper A-arm off and put a brand new one on there. You can't replace those ball joints. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. Hope to see you on the next one. See ya.
See ya.